Look at the bustling floor of a modern stock exchange. Millions of dollars of value moving in milliseconds. But if you take away the servers and the screens, what actually remains? You just have people standing in a room, gesturing at empty air. The market, much like the borders of your country or the concept of human rights, does not exist in the physical world. It is an entirely fabricated construct. 70,000 years ago, humans did not build markets. We were unremarkable middle-tier apes, confined strictly to small family bands, and focused entirely on basic physical survival. This network graph shows how those early bands were biologically constrained. The nodes represent individuals communicating about immediate physical threats. Watch what happens when the group size hits 150. The connections snap. A primitive ape brain simply cannot track relationships beyond that number. The social structure collapses. Then a mutation occurred in human language. We developed the ability to talk about things that were not physically there. We began to speak about spirits, tribal identities, and myths. By inventing a myth, two strangers who had never met could suddenly trust each other. Because they both anchored their trust in the same invisible construct, the social network could expand infinitely into thousands of stable relationships. Mass synchronized action suddenly became entirely possible. Early humans could now move in perfect geometric formation, overwhelming predators that were much larger and much stronger. We exited the middle of the food chain. Human dominance on this planet is not the result of our individual physical strength. It is the direct product of our unique ability to architect and fully believe in a shared reality. As those coordinated tribes multiplied, the Earth ran out of wild territory for them to forage. 10,000 years ago, populations were forced to settle down and cultivate crops just to feed the sheer volume of people. Living in a static settlement required an entirely new set of invisible stories. When people stop moving, society requires rules to dictate who gets what. Concepts like property lines, geographical borders, and social classes were engineered to maintain order. This shift created a severe biological trade-off. Humanity secured vast, predictable food supplies, but the daily life of an individual human became drastically restricted. Free-moving nomads were locked into repetitive physical labor, serving the strict life cycles of wheat and rice. As the agricultural surplus caused populations to explode even further, expanding villages eventually collided with one another. Distinct local tribes were forced together into highly volatile mega-empires. To prevent these diverse populations from tearing each other apart, universal religions and sweeping political systems were designed. These macro-fictions gave millions of strangers a shared moral framework, overriding local differences to enforce cooperation across massive geographies. This animated diagram illustrates the ultimate unifying tool of that era. Watch how the physical barter of grain and wool dissolves into abstract tokens. Money functions flawlessly across thousands of miles without holding any physical value of its own. It relies entirely on undisputed collective trust in an imagined ledger. Every biological constraint humanity faced was bypassed by inventing an increasingly complex invisible system. We traded individual autonomy for the sheer power of massive collective scale. 500 years ago, a new framework emerged. It began with a radical societal admission, the acknowledgement that humanity does not know everything. Prior empires operated on the premise that their texts already contained all worldly answers. By openly admitting ignorance, society suddenly created immense incentives for dangerous exploration, testing, and empirical discovery. This flowchart maps out how that admission drives the modern economy. The admission of ignorance points directly to exploration, which uncovers new physical resources. Those resources are funneled into future investments, creating a cycle that spins faster and faster, powered by capital and an assumption of future discovery. The physical output of this loop is extreme industrial acceleration. In just a few centuries, the natural landscape was terraformed into steel and exhaust. Humans gained a level of control over the physical world that previous generations could not have imagined. But while our industrial power has outpaced our biological evolution, our neural hardware remains unchanged. Because our biological capacity for fulfillment evolved for survival on the savanna rather than modern comfort, the massive gains in our productivity have not translated into an increase in human happiness. We have succeeded in surrounding ourselves with an entirely artificial environment, yet we are still inhabiting it with a mind designed for the wild. For 70,000 years, the human mind has been the sole author of the narratives that govern life on Earth. Now our scientific imagination is focused on building completely autonomous technologies. We are engineering advanced artificial intelligence and deploying precision genetic editing. There is a strict functional difference in this modern era. Money, borders, and empires dissolve the second people stop believing in them. An algorithmic system operates entirely independently of human belief. We are also applying this engineering power to ourselves. In sterile laboratories, we are actively attempting to permanently rewrite our own underlying biological code. We are giving birth to forms of intelligence that possess their own capacity to learn, to adapt, and to construct systems that surpass human comprehension. 70,000 years after we first used imagination to bridge our biological limits, we are now designing the successors that will replace us. The next chapter of history will no longer be shaped by the stories we tell, but by the autonomous systems we have